December 9th, 2019 Hazlet Board of Education meeting to order. Please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, now is our time for public comment and correspondence. Oh, show and tell.
Good evening, everyone.
Hi.
Today I am here in capacity.
Introduce yourself, please.
My name is Simar Pawar, and I am here representing Meridian Garden Club today. I was tasked with the force to bring you guys attention to the program that we did back in, I want to say early summer, but it was late spring. I'm going to present this plaque. Was given by MNLA. It's an association that selected the project that Hazlet High School football team worked on. The date was May 18th, and we started talking about this project through, first we sent a letter to school administration. I think Mr. Cook got a little snaps of it that this is what we're looking for. Police department was looking for a garden outside of the police department because there was nothing there besides stones and rainwater collecting. It is easy for garden club members to just come up, oh, this is what we will do, but it is very hard to get young men or women to come and do the task. So I was tasked first to go solicit with schools to see who would sign up for the project. I have worked various different projects over like the last 5 to 6 years through the school district, and every time they've been very successful. We planted bulbs at middle school one year. We do read sign at the library. Then we plant outside Lake Lansing South. So these are some of the things that Hazlet High School students have worked in the past. The reason for me coming out today was this award was presented by an outside entity out of not Meridian Garden Club or the Prime community itself, not the Meridian Township. It was independent committee that asked citizens to submit projects based on merit. About 14 to 16 projects get selected. So this project was very new, and the reason Meridian Garden Club was very impressed by Hazlet schools, parents, teachers, and administrators was that once the project got an okay, everything was so smooth. Coach Adalewski's command on his team, coaching staff's coherence with the project. There was about 60 plus volunteers between Okemos High School and Hazlet. It was set up as a competition between two schools for fire and police. Hazlet was to set up very brand new garden at Meridian Police Department, and Okemos' task was to clean up the fire station. Clean up was a harder job, but it was a cooler job to start a new garden. But if you really do know that it was very hard to start that garden because there was rain the day before, and it was immense that there was actually water pool. So it required some Army-style work where you're just shoveling the water out, getting the plants, adding soil. Mr. Plaga can talk a lot more on this issue than what his team did. But we were very thankful for Hazlet teaching the basic values, because when these young men came, the general notion of the public or elder members of the club was that they're going to ruin everything. The plan's going to be ruined. But it was wonderful to see the civic mindedness of the group, which cannot be instilled by one person. It cannot be taught by another person. It is a collective value that community in general brings, and Hazlet is blessed to have that. For early years in kindergarten, to be kind, to do little things in middle school, and further to sum it up in high school, these young men, they left the area cleaner than they found it and better looking than it was. So we were very proud, for this project was not selected for its beauty, it was selected for its effort. And I think the school administration and board, parents and coaches, and above all, the people who put the dental labor in this, they're all very well deserving. And I appreciate your time today. Thank you. And we're hoping that this will be put out in the school district somewhere at Central, and we are inviting the same team, same school, to show up on May 17th for an hour and a half to further enhance the beauty of the same area. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Well, that is fabulous news, and we appreciate the efforts of our high schoolers. Madam Secretary, do we have any public correspondence?
No correspondence.
Okay, we will move into our superintendent's report.
Thank you, President Lemmer. I'm just here to announce our holiday concert schedule. Coming up on December 10th, we have our high school band concert at 7:30 p.m. On December 12th, we have our middle school choir winter concert at 7:30 p.m. On December 16th, we have our high school intermediate choir concert at 8 p.m. December 17th, we have our middle school band winter concert at 7 p.m. And lastly, on December 18th, we have our high school advanced choir concert at 8 p.m. And all concerts will be held in the Performing Arts Center at the high school. And then on a side note, I did receive notification this weekend that 2 of our teachers at Wilkshire received notification that they have achieved national board certification. Karen Amakri and Danielle Horn got notification over the weekend. So now we have 4 teachers that are board certified, and we actually have 4 that are still working on their projects now. So congratulations to both Danielle and to Karen for that achievement. And that concludes my report.
Excellent, thank you very much, Mr. Cook. We have 2 discussion items this evening. The first is on out-of-state field trip request. So Ms. Fletcher, if you'd like to join us.
Good evening. I am Kaylee Fletcher, the advanced art teacher. Did I just click something? I am so sorry. Next.
Spoiling my show.
And I'm here to request approval for the Chicago Art Institute field trip that we take every year with advanced art students. And then we've now extended it to drawing and painting students who are planning to be in advanced art the following year. I'm currently working on building a larger group of advanced art students. So right now we have a little bit more space to invite some of the drawing and painting students who are planning on being in advanced art the next year. It's also become a tradition, I guess, for Spanish 4 and 5 students to come. And so those students, just briefly, I'm not their teacher, so I don't know exactly how she kind of manages that group, but I know that they do study Spanish artists in the class, so that's a reason why they go and they want to check out those artists that they've been learning in the class. But as far as my students, it's just a really awesome opportunity for students to experience the art that we've been learning in class and get to see it firsthand in the museum setting. I know that not all students get this opportunity on their own. For them to have that opportunity in class, it's just unforgettable. And it's something that the students really look forward to. If they haven't been on the trip yet, they know about it, they hear about it, and they're like, Ms. Heyman or Miss Fletcher, I'm so sorry, not used to that yet. Miss Fletcher, are we going to go on that trip? Like, really looking forward to it. Is super excited that they get to be a part of it. And honestly, as we're learning about these artists and artworks in class, I'm always like, you should see this in real life. Like, the color and the texture, it's just, it's just totally different to see it, the scale of these works. It's just a totally different experience. So then when they actually get to go and see it, it's just extending learning outside of the classroom in just unforgettable ways. So,
Are there any questions? It's a pretty straightforward request. I guess my only question is, so it sounds like you do have students who go in multiple years, because the students who wouldn't normally be eligible that you're inviting, they might still be interested and able to go next year as well.
yes. So just to touch on that, the beautiful thing about the Chicago Art Institute is that it's so large that even if you go one year, there's still so much to see. And we have students that say, like, that wasn't enough time. I didn't get to see everything that I wanted to. So we always start off in the modern wing, because like right now we're doing a unit on modern art, and the students are learning about different artists, and then they use these artists for inspiration in their work. So we start there because that's a big unit that we do. But then they get to kind of explore in groups. So some of the things that, they want to see, we don't always have time for because it's huge. So And also, I've kind of been rolling this idea around in my head, but I've also considered maybe like doing alternate locations like every year, just so that, because we do have 2-year advanced art students. So I know that when I was in school at Hazlitt, we went to the DIA, and they went to Chicago, and I know Miss Sherwin kind of juggled those 2 locations. So maybe coming up with a different location in future years and kind of going back and forth. But for now, Chicago has been an awesome experience for the students, so there's still plenty to see if they've gone more than once.
All right, so as you may know or remember, we'll take this up for action at our next meeting, which actually won't be till January 13th, but that should still be plenty of time for your planning purposes, I hope.
All right.
Great. Thank you very much for joining us.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And next, we'll have Chris Buck, who's the Meridian Township Economic Development Director. He's going to give us an update on Meridian Township developments. Thank you, Mr. Buck. Great to be here.
Thank you for having me. I'm
And we're
really
gonna
happy to be here. Again, my name is Chris Buck. I've been the Economic Development Director for Meridian Township for a little over 2 years. I'm the first person to ever hold that title. So I'm kind of making up the position as I go along. But I've been asked to talk in a lot of groups. I spoke to the McLaren Hospital C-suite about this type of content. I've spoken to Okama. I've spoken to Rotary. I've spoken to a lot of places, and I was asked if I could come and give a kind of an equal but different presentation to this group here tonight. So I'm grateful for the opportunity, and thank you for all the service you provide to the Prime community. I'm going to talk a little bit about kind of who I am, so you know who you're talking to, which is that weird quirky slide that you just saw. I do have a handful of slides. They're almost all pictures. So it's all going to be me talking, so you're not going to be reading a PowerPoint except for maybe one quick slide. But all right, so anyway, I'm from Philadelphia, born and raised. My Eagles play in about an hour and 15 minutes. Right out of college, I got a job with Enterprise Rent-A-Car, transferred out to Seattle, then got promoted to vice president down in Toledo, overseeing Toledo and Ann Arbor. Enterprise bought Alamo and National. I came up to Michigan and landed here in Okemos to handle the state of Michigan as its vice president of operations for all 3 brands. Happily recovering corporate executive now, unplugged from there, fantastic company, but I unplugged from that in 2013, started a small business consulting firm, volunteered for Meridian Township as on their EDC, started a podcast called Michigan Reimagine. It's actually a radio show on 1240 AM. It's a 15-minute interview highlighting people and organizations that are doing things to make Michigan more vibrant and economically sustainable. It's a really long elevator speech, but that's basically what it is optimism. Stop leading with an apology because you're from Michigan if you're traveling out of state. And that all has led me to becoming the township's economic development director. One of the things that hit me over the head, I lived here for about 8 years before I saw this slide. And I was absolutely blown away after living here for 8 years that Meridian Township was that large. You know, I already knew, I joined the EDC to try to help the township become more business friendly, to try to drive vibrancy and give us cooler places. Being from Philadelphia, spending time in Seattle during its heyday, in my opinion, and then landing here right at the beginning of the recession, I was looking for fun, and I wasn't finding places where I could park my car and spend the day in mid-Michigan. And so I wanted to help the township do what it can. And as I looked at that, and if you remember CATA's BRT program, that was going to be Capital Meridian Mall, the high-speed bus rail. I know that was a problematic argument to try to make, but it really identified to me that these 3 major municipalities are the spine of mid-Michigan. And we all really need to work together as 3 municipalities and stay consistent and congruent with each other if we want mid-Michigan to become really a nationally recognized city region of greatness. So I got involved, and these highlights, these headlines hit the pages. So up at the top, if you don't know, Shiawassee County was just incorporated into the Lansing's MSA, Metropolitan Statistical Area. And what that means is the feds decided that Shiawassee County commutes and shops in Lansing instead of Flint. It has always been a Flint MSA population base, and it has officially been switched over to Lansing. And the reason that's important is on site selection, that tipped us over from about 475,000 people in our MSA to about 550,000. So if you're Whole Foods or Costco and you're sitting in your headquarters out of state and you're saying, hey, give me an MSA that's got over 500,000 people, we weren't popping up, and now we do. So that's kind of cool. The FRIB obviously is getting national renown and is going to go fully live in 2021. $500 million being spent in St. John's for Glambia. It's the 4th largest employer in Ireland, has picked St. John's to process 800 tons of milk a day, which is really, really key for our dairy farmers in the state because they were shipping their raw product out of state to then bring it back to our shelves. So it's a speed and a cost savings. McLaren, obviously, as you all know, is a $450 million. I understand that number's closer to $600 million now. And then that sum total is actually $3.2 billion worth of economic development in the funnel for Mid-Michigan right now, underway. And there's a funnel of things that are about to be announced, including my newly logoed thing there on the right is Wayfair, Meridian Township, right? So that's going to be 62,000 square feet in the 2-story I building on the east side of Hagedorn, south of Pizza House, if you know where that is. So they're going to take that all over. They are going to Wayfair it. Apparently that's a verb. Wayfair has we met with one of their vice presidents in the township, and he talked a little bit about it. But they have a very modern, employee-friendly style of office space. So they're going to spend the next 12 months really getting that turned around and be up and running this time next year. It's going to bring 503 jobs. I heard 529 for graduates. So it's going to be LCC and MSU in their site selection. They spent a lot of time talking to the higher eds and then also talking to Capital Area Michigan Works and MSU, FCU, and a couple other people that have a call center to kind of confirm that they're going to be able to get the talent base here. And that started as a Midwest 5-state site selection. Okay, so it narrowed down and ended up with 1 site in Grand Rapids, 2 here in Lansing. LEAP, to their credit, to Lansing Economic Area Partnership, Bob Terzice's team, took them around and had all these meetings set up with the higher eds and some other business owners to really make sure they felt like this was the right spot. Apparently Grand Rapids took their people to a Metallica concert. And so they decided that they liked Lansing's preparation and desire to roll up their sleeves and get the job done, and they picked us, which we're really grateful for. So that's 12 months from now. Which we think is fantastic because that's going to give immediate employment opportunities for recent college grads. When I was with Enterprise, we hired a lot of people right off of college campuses, and a lot of them said, if you didn't hire me, I was going to have to leave the state to go find a good job. So I'm glad you have a great recruiting process because now I get to stay close to where I'd rather live. So I think there's a lesson to be learned there, and Wayfair is going to help with that. So the township, and this is the only one that has words on it really. So we have a new brand, as you can see in the upper left. We have a new website, a new master plan, all from about the 2017, early 2018 implementation. And then our priorities, debt-free community. Let me say that again, debt-free community. That is an anomaly, a unicorn in the state of Michigan. And long-term plan for the roads, economic development to revitalize our business districts, and then protect the neighborhoods, parks, and schools. So examples of some of that is, as you can see, our logo. That was our old brand in the upper left that had a teepee, which apparently was not the housing of choice for Native Americans in this region. So it was a fallacy to begin with in the 70s, and we decided to limp it along until 2017. Then we've updated it to the one on the right. You can see the branding that we have all over the place. So people, when they see a Meridian Township meeting, they know they're in Meridian Township. The website, that we have a new economic development page on the new website as well. So if you ever wanted to see what my shenanigans are up to, you can take a look at this website and you'll find a lot of documents that go towards development in Meridian Township. That's the ribbon cutting for the Okemos elevation down by Okemos and Jolly. Will Randall in the middle and Pat Smith with his hand in the air in the white pants are the 2 principals working on the downtown Okemos Village project. Brent Forsberg to the right is of TA Forsberg, has a lot of projects in the region as well. I was cut out of this picture on the left. The master plan was adopted in November of 2017, and in it really highlights 7 goals that I think are kind of irrefutable. We want to preserve and strengthen residential neighborhoods. Open space, our parks and land preservation are second to none. Viability of township businesses, which I'm working on extensively, maintain a park system, essential public services, which include libraries, police, fire, EMTs, things of that nature. Multimodal transportation, we want to make sure that we stay relevant when it comes to moving people around our region, and then sustainable growth practices. A big part of it were what we called PICAs, so that stands for Potential Intensity Change Areas. So you have downtown Okemos, you have the four corners of Hazlet and Marsh, and then you have Carriage Hills Shopping Center. We're all deemed as revitalization focal points for the township and the master plan. In a slide or two later, I'm going to show you something where I want to expand that a little bit. But that's when I was hired. They said, okay, downtown Okemos and the four corners of Hazlet kind of stink right now. And we've been trying to get something to happen, but nobody's landing in our lap. Why don't you go, knock on doors and invite people to come and try something out here, and that's what I've been doing for the last 2 years. Pedestrians and bicycle pathways are really going under a major revolution here as well. So getting to some of the goals, this is what the voters voted for a couple of years ago with the 10-year plan to pay off our pension debt. There are two things that are crippling municipalities in Michigan, and that's infrastructure costs and underfunded pension debt. We were at $23 million. I think it was actually closer to $30 million of pension debt. City of East Lansing's at $200 million. Okay, so they've got their income tax. I have no idea what their schedule is for repaying this, but we had a very, very transparent process where we said if we can get this millage passed, we can fund police and fire to the standards we want. We need to get a new ladder truck, which is about $500,000, and we want to fund the pension debt within the next 10 years, and then we'll be a debt-free community, which is fantastic. Just last month, we passed the road bonding. So we've received our first installment. If you don't know about this, it's basically it's a little over $30 million over the next 10 years. We're going to take out 3 waves of $10 million bonds because you can't spend it all that quickly. So we're getting 3 years worth of money, and we're going to do a lot of our local streets that have just been neglected. We talk about fixing the damn roads, and we're actually going to do it. So the great news is we lobbied to get we're a AA+ bond rating. Now we lobbied for a AAA, and we just missed that. But our bond interest came in, and I should know this, I think it was only like 1.3%. So we got virtually the same interest as a AAA rating. So it's really cheap money, and instead of getting $10 million, we got 11.3 or something. And so our old funding used to allow us to fix maybe 4 miles of local streets a year. We have a plan that's going to be announced at tomorrow night's board meeting for next year, because this is all happening right now, and we want to make sure it happens, and it's 150 total miles, and we're going to do 15 miles next year. So that's 1/10. So we'll be right on pace. And so in 10 years, we're going to be debt-free, we're going to have great infrastructure, and we're going to have great commercial and business districts, which are awesome, and then these villages will roll off, and then we have mechanisms to kind of maintain everything. So it's going to be a pretty inexpensive place to live with a lot of great amenities. So redevelopment. So they hired me. We created a $700,000 redevelopment fund to assist developers only on projects in these 2 areas, the Four Corners of Okemos and Hazlet Village Square, and Shoptown and Hazlet Commerce Center. Is that what it's called across the street? I think that's what the shopping center across the street from Hazlet Village Square is. We've updated our ordinance to allow for taller buildings and more dense development in certain key areas. We have a brownfield redevelopment authority for when contamination and dilapidated building demolition wants to be covered in a tax credit type of a form, but that's, again, it's basically a repayment of money spent up front for only eligible activities. So it's not a tax increase, and it is not free money to companies. And then we're a certified redevelopment ready community through the MEDC, and we are the first first township in the state to receive this award, and the 29th community. Basically, as I mentioned with the Wayfair example, there are site selectors looking for new homes for companies to land all over the country, and these site selectors want to, we have the MEDC and LEAP, and a bunch of people are trying to get them to consider Michigan, And so what they don't want to have happen is to fight really, really hard, have a Wayfair, land in Meridian Township, and then have the township put them through a buzzsaw because we're not prepared to approve their project. Granted, theirs is more of a renovation of an existing building, but going through the development process can be really labor intensive. So the MEDC put out incentives that if you go through their 41 best practices and check the boxes, you become a certified redevelopment ready community. We declare that it's easy to do business with us, and that actually opens up the door for statewide funding and incentives that are otherwise not available for townships. So that was kind of a big deal. All right, so I talked about the 3 PICAs. This is not sanctioned by the township, but my own little plan for my 2020 goal and try to implement into the master plan is an expansion on that concept. I think we have 7 different nodes, not 3. So in the upper left, the number 1 is Carriage Hills, number 2 is your Hazlitt downtown, number 3 is basically Whole Foods and Hobby Lobby, that little node of vibrancy over there. Number 4 is Okemos Village, number 5 is Hannah Plaza down to Mount Hope, number 6 is Okemos and Jolly, and then number 7 is kind of the central business district with the mall and Home Depot and all of that stuff. And then I've been reading more and more articles, educating myself on all of this, and I love this article by Strong Towns called 7 Rules for Creating 15-Minute Neighborhoods. The idea that modern development really talks about how, especially the young folks coming up are looking for places to live where they're within a 15-minute walk of about 90% of the amenities and services that they want on a day-to-day basis. So we have this little bit of a push-pull in Meridian Township because we have these established subdivisions that are so popular, and we also have a significant percentage of our population that's aging. So I think the balance is preserve the subdivisions, live in a subdivision, have a great time in the subdivisions, but everyone should have a little node that's close enough that they can walk to or bike to, where they can see the energy and vibrancy, and then also have some housing stock within those nodes as well. So I think that's a direction the township would like to go. So talking about residential development that's going to hopefully drive enrollment up. You probably are aware of the Copper Creek project that is in Hazlitt catchment. It's 88 homes that's been approved by Mayberry just east of the golf course. So that's a little bit of a layout. We're waiting for them to begin construction on that, but I understand that that's forthcoming. Bob's embroiled with another rezoning project down on Bennett Road, which I'll talk about here in a second. But Mayberry Homes is going to bring a good product and 88 new homes here, hopefully sooner than later.
Probably spring at this point then?
That's my hope. I'm more of a commercial construction guy than a residential construction. I don't know he's been approved. So I think all he needs to do is submit some specific plans and talk about drain commissioner approval and Ingham County Road Department and some of those entities, wetland delineations and things of that nature. Otherwise, he's prepared to be off to the races. So he doesn't have a whole lot of red tape to cut from our standpoint. So he just needs to get going. DTN has an approved project called Newton Place. This is Saginaw Highway and Newton Road. It's about 250 units of, and it's really interesting. It's got 4 different housing stocks, right? Yeah, okay. So on the left-hand side is a traditional mixed-use project where you have first floor commercial. Half of that building's mass is going to house their meeting space and their, the common area for the complex. It's more of a neighborhood. And then you're going to have a couple of 2 floors above that of traditional apartments. But as you come in on the right-hand side, those 17 squares at the bottom of that graphic are carriage homes. 0 barrier, single-story carriage homes for rent. So they'll have garages. They are, like I said, barrier-free, and it's a type of housing stock that we don't have anywhere in the township. Then you have a series of their quadplexes in the darker brown, and then you have their 10plexes in the top. And if you want an example of the 10plexes, they call this a greatest hits of the DTN products that have been most successful around the state. And the 10plexes are a lot like DeWitt's Quarry. If you take 69 and you look off to the side, you see that new development going up there. I toured it. It's phenomenal. If you get a chance, just walk in and take a look at their common area, and they'll take you to some of their samples. If they have any still available, they were on a waiting list when I went there last, but they had some under construction, weren't occupied yet. But this is going to be a really nice project. It is an all for rent program as opposed to for sale. But I'm learning from the development community that that's all the banks will fund. But there are all these mixed-use projects that have really cool housing stock that not everyone, some people groan a little bit. Why aren't they for sale? Why are they for rent? I'm being told that's the ability for them to get funded, but they're being built with such a high standard of quality that if the pendulum swings and people want to own, that these could be condoed. Walnut Hills. I'm sure you haven't heard anything about this. So you may know as much as I do about this. So 311 homes have been approved. This is a court-ordered mediation. There's mandatory buffering. I don't know why I guess just the shape. So north is to your left. So the buffering to the neighborhoods, the established neighborhoods to the east and to the west is part of the legal agreement that there's X amount of feet, 75 feet, 50 feet of dense buffering to kind of shield the existing neighborhoods from this new subdivision. They were allowed, I think, to build 260 homes by right. They wanted a rezoning that would take them up to 427. We denied that. They sued us. And we went to a court order of mediation, and we came to a number of 311, which is a lot closer to what they were allowed to do. And now the developer who put us through all of that has a big for sale sign out in front of the property, which makes my head spin a little bit. So we did have a couple of meetings with the developer. It sounds like there is a program that might be coming through. It might be phased. And I don't even want to tease you with what they're talking about. We've heard everything from some housing, but resurrect a 9-hole golf course. I'm hearing other housing, but they want to keep the clubhouse open as a common area for the neighborhood. Well, let's just say, don't hold your breath. Let's just see what we get when we get it. But it is definitely going to need to adhere to a lot of these standards. And if they want to change, they're going to need to go to court to remove some of these conditions. That is in East Lansing. Yeah, it's just outside of your catchment. But, well, I don't know. When I get through the residential stuff, I want to hit you with a little bit of a punchline, something that I've been thinking about quite a bit. This is a little bit more on the Okemos side. So the Bennett Road rezoning, this is basically between Bennett Woods Elementary School and the back 9 of College Fields Golf Course. There's about 90 acres of undeveloped property. This is going in front of the Township Board tomorrow night for final approval. It's been about a 2-year fight, I think would be probably the best way to put it. There is a very activated 3 neighborhoods to the right there that were very opposed to this development project. The area in purple is actually going to be deemed as the owner of the land, and the developer is going to turn that into a land preserve like the green to the left of it, which will shield some of those cul-de-sacs from development, and all of the development is going to be down in the rectangle. So anyway, I like the fact that that's really close to the FRIB. It's really close to MSU. It's close to Wayfair. It's close to McLaren. So new single-family housing stock doesn't hurt my feelings, my personal feelings. Silverstone, this is another Mayberry expansion of an existing property. This is 25 new homes on Powell Road north of Grand River Ave. I guess is that the top of the driving range? Yes, top of the drive.
They're already clearing for that, right?
Correct.
Yeah.
Yep. LaFontaine car dealership is going to go down on Grand River Ave and on both sides of Powell Road. That's the Chrysler side
Is
of
that
that.
going to get Powell paved?
Yes.
Interesting.
Yeah. At least the area that is affected. There may be a gap. I don't know if they're going to make them pave it because now you've got the subdivision and then you've got this commercial coming up from the bottom.
Yeah.
But yes, I think that is the plan.
It's not the best dirt road, so.
I don't take it very much.
People on Tire are going to be back at you too if you pay Powell.
People are going to be back at us no matter what. I'm learning that.
I'll take Tie Hart while I'm at it.
Right. And Liverance around Douglas J. So Fido up on Sierra Ridge. This is off of Saginaw Highway, and I'm sorry, is that it's not Newton, it's Towner? Not Towner. Shoot. Yeah. It is Newton. Newton Saginaw Highway. Yep. That's also 38 homes, like a phase 3. Or I'm sorry, Sierra Ridge number 3. So these additional homes to kind of round out that subdivision.
Towards Saginaw.
Correct. Yep.
Right by the park.
And then you've got White Hills Lake South, which is, I put Costco there as a reference. So off of Lake Lansing Road and Park Lake, they're going to continue to develop in there. Another 35 new homes. This is a sanctuary, which is across from Okemos High School, Loon Lane and Robbins Way. They have 7 new lots going back into this green space. And then Okemos Elevation, we talked about that before. That's going to be 395 units, which you see right now. That's been completed as phase 1. Phase 2 is underway with 5 more buildings. There's going to be a total of 19 buildings there. And the neat thing about this development project, kind of like the Newton Park or Newton Place, I forget, they keep changing the name on me. This is a for rent product as well. It's a luxury apartment complex. I drove by here when the Okemos Public School K-4 bus dropped off. 14 kids got off and went into this apartment complex. I think that's fantastic. You know, they were really targeting young professionals with no kids and empty nesters coming back and didn't want home ownership. They wanted the lock and leave so they can go down to Florida or Arizona for the winter months and have maintenance be handled. But I was impressed to see so many school-age children living in this. And again, that's 14 kids in phase one. And that's less than probably 40% of what's going to eventually be there. Could be the new neighborhood. All right, Village of Okemos. So you basically have about 205 housing units and 50,000 square feet of commercial space. I'm going to give you a little bit more detail on that here in a second. So it's really significant in its scope. It's really going to be something unique in the region. We don't really have anything like this, in my opinion, anywhere in the region. I have a little video here, if you'll indulge me. It's only 2 minutes long, but it's a little walking tour. So what you're going to start with is if you had your back to Mount Hope, and you were on the east side of Okemos Road, walking north towards Hamilton, you know, that little cat veterinarian hospital, that's where this is starting from. Oh, I swear this was working earlier. All right, what does that do? So slides. This is a video. Oh, here we go. Oh. I got this display settings. Oh. I'm getting that whole next slide is up, so the screen should activate with a.
Yes.
There we go. All right, so that's the south end there on the left. They're talking about shared workspace. WeWork was the brand they were going to put in there. It might be something different going forward on the first floor, and then residential units above. They have 6 architects working on this individually so that they can push them together and have everyone's got their own little bit of flair. This area that we're coming up on is Douglas J. That's going to be their new flagship salon, basically where Ace Hardware and Bottoms Up is. You're now at Hamilton. You'll see that there's a boulevard that's placed in there with street trees. It's a little hard to see here, but there's festoon lighting, what my wife calls happy lights, strung across all of Hamilton, going from building to building. We're planning on a signature restaurant on this right corner here to be the anchor of the north block. Wide sidewalks, plenty of room for outdoor cafe, coffee shops, boutique shopping. You're not going to see an Applebee's, no offense to the brand, but this is going to be all hopefully locally owned, if not Michigan owned, food and boutique shopping. This is the Hamilton building coming in. That's not part of the project, but that's the existing building, so you can see how it's incorporated. That's the Masons building there and the existing Douglas J. Those darker buildings down there are going to be 5-story townhomes. They're going to be 2-story, first and second floor brownstones on the first floor, and then a series of the third floor are going to be flats, and then the fourth and fifth story are going to be 2-story townhomes with outdoor garden terraces as well. So it's going to be really, really a marquee development project and a great address for a place to live. That residential product is likely to go on that northern block in a phase 2 if this all occupies the way we expect it to. So you'll have kind of mirror image of that same residential product that's on the south block is also likely to happen on the north block. More outdoor seating, street trees, benches, bike racks, planter boxes. It's just going to be a special place, I think. So.
Is that the existing barbershop?
No, that's there's nothing there actually right now. That's the dry cleaner that contaminated everything is about where that barber shop is going to be. But I'll tell you that Douglas J is expecting to have a separate entrance and a barber shop in its own right because they've never had a barber shop before, but now they're teaching barbertology and they're going to open a barber shop. So
Existing businesses like the barbershop at Isaiah's, I mean, how are they all getting incorporated into this?
I've gone door to door and spoken with all of them. Okemos Road, we want to learn a lot from what happened in downtown Jackson. They had a huge campaign for road closures and redevelopment on this kind of magnitude and, maybe an app or navigation of what's closed, what's open, how do you get there. They just redid Woodward Avenue in Birmingham. And I'm not promising this. I don't know if I'm on camera because I don't think this is going to happen. But in Bloomington or in Birmingham, they actually had a program where if you spent money at any of the merchants on Woodward during the construction, you could submit your receipt and you get half your money back. There was a fund established. I don't know if it was their EDC or the government or what, but really in an effort. So I'd like to kind of steal some things out of their playbook. I don't know if it's going to be a cash thing, but I want to advertise the heck out of it. They offer specials, really good wayfinding. I want to do above and beyond because while development's good when you disrupt the other people that are already there, we don't want to lose the old while we bring in the new.
When does this start and what's the timeline?
They're expecting to demolish the rest of the buildings in March and start going vertical in June.
And then how long to complete?
24-month build cycle. So late summer or fall of 2022 for occupancy.
So I didn't see any parking meters in there.
No meter. We don't have any parking meters in Meridian Township. So interestingly, on the south block, the Ace Hardware Tuba Museum block, that's where a lot of the contamination is. So Eagle or DEQ is going to need to dig a lot of that dirt out and ship it out. And we're saving money by not bringing in fill dirt, but we're going to use the big hole to create a pseudo-subterranean parking deck. So the idea is back around where the big tree is by where the fire station used to be. There's going to be on Ardmore, there's going to be a kind of a discrete entryway that'll take you in and kind of take you under, and that's expected to be parking for the residents who lease upstairs. But then above it on the grade, the sidewalk level is going to be parking. They call it a Texas donut. So this is going to be a big, the buildings are going to go all the way around and then parking is going to be in the middle. And so the day trippers and shoppers are going to park on the pad in the middle.
Nice.
And then on the northern block, you really have more of an L, so there's going to be a lot of surface parking there too. And then Douglas J is going to leave their existing building, go into their new building, and the old Douglas J block is going to serve as a parking overflow as well. So, and then we'll see what kind of tenants we get and see how much push-pull we get on needs for parking and whether that's enough or not enough, and then that'll determine what phase 2 will be, which is when they go back and redo block 3, which is the Douglas J block, the existing Douglas J block. How much of that will need to be parking will be determined by what the experience is for parking in that area after phase 1 is done. So I'll keep rattling through this. So north of Whole Foods, there's a handful of acreage that's going to be 50 affordable housing units. That's been approved as well, just west of Wordcliff. And then things we're doing for vibrancy efforts. Hopefully you've heard about the farmers market that's coming to the mall perimeter. That's Studio C to the right, and that's high caliber karting and entertainment in the back. And we're going to have a $1.5 million farmers market permanent pavilion going in there. That's was expected to break ground a couple of months ago. It's expected now to start. They can work in the winter because, as you can see, it's not indoors per se. So they're going to work on this starting like next week. We're meeting with the drain commissioner tomorrow to get the permitting, which was the final hang up to let us start on this. And it's going to be a permanent structure, and clearly we're going to program it with a lot more than just the farmers market, but it's right down the street from our existing farmers market, so we're not going to lose our audience. We've had food truck rallies there. We've done the Gus Macker there. We do our fireworks there in the winter and on 4th of July. So this is a really great space. The mall gave us this land in a land swap, so now it's township property. And we have, as you can see, infinity for parking, which isn't the case for our, you talk about parking, well, let's not build new. And we were running out of parking where we were. So this is going to be perfect. So now people can park. You'll see the crosswalk that takes you across Central Park Drive and into the newly modernized park structure across the street. So you're going to have, we already have one dog park, and we're getting a second dog park. There's going to be a new pier on the little pond that's there. And then the pathways will take you all the way up to Nancy Moore, and then we've got this campus to Lake Lansing trail system that's being filled. So you could park here, and you could go to Meat Barbecue in Old Town, or you could go down to Delhi Township on your bike, and then come back and pick up some farmers market goods, and then go drive go-karts and throw axes at high caliber karting. So this is another little rendering of what that's going to look like, and we're expecting maybe a band shell, a playground, seating area. It's going to be a really nice feature. So this is kind of the Parks Master Plan, which we probably don't need to belabor, but that's Nancy Moore up towards the top, and the mall is down at the bottom. So the mall itself is a huge focal point of mine. The high caliber karting is wildly successful. My son works there. He's a high school student at Okemos, so I pick him up and drop him off, and the place is mobbed. I know the owners. I'm really excited about the success that they're having so far. Launch Trampoline Park, Marketplace on the Green, which is the name of our new farmers market, Studio C. You know, you put in Dick's Sporting Goods there. Now, all of a sudden, you have the back door of the mall is becoming an entertainment hub. And we want to really market that. I'm working with the mall on maybe rebranding the mall, giving it a different name, some more walkability. We do have the 2-story Yonkers. We've got 3 people kicking tires on maybe going into that. That's the opportunity at the top. And then out front, we have the huge green space on Marsh and Grand River that was deemed do not build. But we've loosely said, go ahead and shop it. And if you come up with a project, the township would be interested in entertaining that. Because what we want to do is slowly start kind of morphing this old school indoor enclosed mall into more of an Eastwood outdoor kind of a feel. So, you know, we can lease the space out front, but it's hard to lease right in the center of this. There's been discussions for hotel and convention center. There's been discussions about housing. There's been discussions about office space, performing arts theaters, to what if, you know, if JCPenney's goes out, maybe we demo JCPenney's and put a new front door and create more space on the perimeter to build new stuff around it. So really everything's on the table, and I talk to their VP of operations down in Chattanooga, Tennessee once a week really about the projects that are going on here at the mall. So we're going to do this. So I'm really excited about that. Hazlet Village Square and the Hazlet, it's really business district. I think this whole area has got its best days ahead of it. I think it's really, if I have my way in 5 to 10 years, this is going to be a regional draw. I think Lake Lansing South is such an underappreciated amenity for the region. I personally am going to go on an advocacy spree to rename it back to Pine Lake instead of Lake Lansing. And if we can't get there, I want the locals to call it Pine Lake. It just gives it a little bit right. Pine Lake Brewing Company, Pine Lake Grocery, something like that. You call it Lake Lansing? You must not be from around here. We call it Pine Lake. So that's my hope, because it's 4/10 of a mile from Village Square up to Lake Lansing. So if Hazlet Village Square becomes a residential hub or a mixed use kind of like Okemos Village, and if you could put Rio Town, if you haven't been down by Blue Owl Coffee and Saddleback Barbecue's original space, their sidewalk is really, really wide. And I could see couples holding hands, people walking dogs, kids on bikes going from Village Square up to Lake Lansing and being able to use that amenity. So I'm optimistic about that. So we just, with our redevelopment ready certification, we were able to garner $25,000 from the MEDC and the Michigan Municipal League to foster an absorption study or a feasibility study for this Hazlet district all the way up to Lake Lansing and back. Boy, that doesn't show up very well. I tried to highlight it in yellow on the right. But long story short is the study says that there is a lot of opportunity for office, for housing, and for businesses here in the Hazlet area. And, you know, I fish in all ponds using the metaphor, and I haven't had a lot of strikes here in Hazlet, but the ones I've had, the developer, whether it was residential or restaurant, came back to me and just said, you know, I'm hesitant on pulling the trigger because I just don't get Hazlet. I don't know what they're going to support. You know, I don't really feel like I know what they want. And so we asked for this study to show what they want, and we've got some, you know, all the way down to the square footage and what type of commercial establishments might be successful there. What is there a pent-up demand for? And my goal is, I mean, you saw the Okemos Village. I'm not saying that the Hazlet Village needs to look like the Okemos Village, but that concept of walkability, boutique shopping, restaurant, housing, kind of all together. It may be lower, it may be more spread out. You certainly have a lot more acreage here than you have in the Okemos Village. But my hope would be that there'd be something that kind of vibrant and that kind of impressiveness to go down here. And I think success begets success. So once that starts, I think it'll be hard to stop. And I'm hoping that it can sprawl all the way up. Cone Zone hasn't opened now for 2 seasons. We've got the most beautiful gravel waterfront parking lot I've ever seen up next to the party store on the row of the bars there, and a big patch of grass there. I mean, again, I'm not against grass, but I just think it would be cool to incorporate some regional draw businesses and establishments that would make people want to go there even more than they do now. So this is hot off the presses. I sent an email to 33 developers and commercial realtors with this study and links to a bunch of stuff on the township and a very, impactful, hopefully, email to get people to understand that this is going on, and I expect there to be some action soon because people have been waiting for this study. And then Saginaw Business Loop, so you got Costco at the bottom, and you've got Meyer at the top. Interestingly, Costco is East Lansing, and Meyer is Bath, but everything else is ours. So city limits, there is a lot of discussion about what's going to happen at city limits. You've got the New Hope Church is now done. That DTN Newton Place apartments are going to go in where the words are. Towner Road Park is now live, which is great. And then in the orange, which didn't show up very well, is that 40-acre old drive-in movie theater. Fasten your seatbelts. We're going to get something to go up in there. We'll see how sexy it is, but it's definitely going to be a repurposing of that land. We have developers that are shopping it around. There's one significant commercial tenant that's likely to anchor that, and then with whatever land is left, there might be some more residential opportunity around that too.
So some genuine interest.
Oh, absolutely, yeah. Like maybe announce it before New Year's.
Wow.
The one thing, but we'll see. It might be after. Everything moves a little slower than I want to. And I just want to throw this in there because it matters. We did approve 6 overlay districts for medical marijuana, and I don't think any of them are in Hazlet. They aren't. So there's one up by that Saginaw Loop, that big green area below the Towner Road Park sign. So off of Lake Lansing Road, I think it is one provisioning center area that's on a 25-acre parcel. But anyway, we will likely have up to 6 medical marijuana provisioning centers in each of these business districts. So they're all going through the process now. The special use permits are going to be applied or vetted in January. They all seem like pretty credible operators, and we'll see what we get. So if you've been paying attention to this.
Number 2 looks like it's.
Yeah, that's, oh yes, I'm sorry. So that's the intersection of Okemos and Hazlet Road, the Power Sports vacant space next to the fire station and Keb's Engineering and the gas station. The 4th corner there does have a provisioning center expected to go into that strip mall there next to the State Farm guy. And then just some more recent news. As you already know, Meridian and Okemos and Hazlet schools in particular are getting a lot of press. In the bottom right, you can see the best schools in the U.S. News rankings. You've got best places to live in Michigan. Okemos and Hazlet are in the top 20. And then Meridian Township, like that first slide where I show you how big and impressive in size Meridian Township is, we are the 40th largest municipality in the state. And we've grown 9% since 2010, which is the fastest growing municipality. I mean, you look, Detroit's down 6%. Grand Rapids is only up 6%. Lansing's up 4%. East Lansing's up -1%, and we're up 9%. So we're growing in population significantly. And then we have a $1.8 billion tax base, which puts us, I forget what the ranking was. 30, what does that say, 31? Yeah, so 31st. We're bigger than East Lansing and Delhi Township combined. And the city of Lansing's 2.1, I think, and we're in 1.8. So we're a force to be reckoned with, and we're hell-bent as a government to take care of all the great things we have. And a very, very, very big part of that is our public schools. So we really thank you for all you do to make our community a prime community. And I'm here to just make it more vibrant without upsetting the apple cart. You know, let the subdivision folks stay in the subdivisions. Older folks, you know, and people that really like some of the stuff we've always had, I want those things to always, you know, to be able to stay. But if we can incorporate new and modern and walkability, I just feel innate pressure to have accessible housing for young families that have kids who want to be in our school districts who are currently telling me that there's no place for them to land. And so we need a variety of housing stock. So, and that's it. I left a stack of business cards up here. If anyone has any questions, I'm more than willing to engage. I can have conversations, emails, phone calls, texts. But I'm grateful for the opportunity. I'm sorry that maybe ran a little longer than you expected, but I only do it
good
once.
information.
So thank you for your time.
Very interesting. Are you open to some questions?
Absolutely.
Because what I think, aren't there public hearings, or there was an announcement about Hazlet Village Square and some senior housing or something?
Yep. So yeah, it's still yes. They're going through the public hearing process. It's 133 units on the west side of the village square. So Mr. R's driving school and the dance school and all, like that building. And I want to be gentle.
The
and-
only
and
ones
say-
that have tenants?
Yep. But it's a pretty robust group of people. It's an organization out of Southeast Michigan. They have half a dozen to a dozen of these projects around the state. They just finished one in Lake St. Clair Shores. And I've seen pictures of it as built, and it's going to be comparable to that. The only gateway to this is 55 and older. Okay, it's not a nursing home. It's not a bunch of wheelchairs and I mean, not that there's anything wrong with that. We need that, but I guess what I want people to understand that this could be vibrant. It's not, senior housing in the traditional sense.
It's not
just
an
a
assisted
50.
living.
Nope, it's a 55 and older. They are going to have a food service provider. They're going to have a general practitioner who has some office hours for doctors' visits on sites and a hair salon. But it's about 130 units. And the neat thing about that is I will be willing to bet that almost every tenant that goes in there, once it's built, will be an existing Hazlet resident leaving a single-family home. That would be my guess. And based on the studies I see, we have a pent-up demand big time for that, which means that those single-family homes in the subdivisions are now available for people. If you know any residential realtors, they'll tell you there's nothing on the market. You need to build more homes. I'm like, well, we need to build more of this.
Right.
And Village of Okemos and Elevation and DTN's Newton, because I think that's going to attract some inbound people to the region, but then a lot of people that are aging in place because there's no alternative. And then we can backfill those single-family homes with affordable homes for young families.
So these are going to be universal design, like zero barrier entry kind of thing? Or do you
Yep,
know that?
that's my understanding. It's going to be at least I think it's 2 floors. I haven't seen the designs. I'm not a planner. I bring them, and then the planning guys take over all the approval stuff. But I've met with them a dozen times, and I've seen the elevations. It's at least, I think it's 2 stories. It might be 3 stories. So there will be elevators and things of that nature. But yeah, it's going to be very age-friendly. Yep.
Sorry, that's my other hat.
Absolutely, yes.
Go ahead.
I have a couple of questions, and one of them is the extent to which the school districts, Okemos and Hazlet, can communicate with you data-wise. Because you talk about the township being debt-free in 10 years, or reduced debt, whatever
Yep.
it is. That kind of fits us, too. I mean, the district's going to have substantially reduced its debt in 10 years. And I'll let Rick and Steve talk the details with you at some point. But it seems like you should have that data as well for you when
Right.
you're talking with all these developers, because it's not just the local unit, it is the school districts as well. We can't speak for Okemos, but
Sure.
I know where we are. We've been refinancing our debt, regularly. So that's a big part for us. And the second part, data-wise, is the extent to which the township can help inform us about the housing stock changeover. I'm sure you can't tell us how many children of what age are moving in. But all I can say is I've noticed anecdotally in my neighborhood, Everett Farms, we have a lot more strollers in the neighborhood than we did a few years ago. And we had a significant increase, unexpected increase in enrollment, which is a positive thing, except that it caught us needing to add a section at the last minute as schools opening. So
Right. Yep.
the extent to which we can collaborate more with the township on the kind of data you have on what is happening in our residential neighborhoods, the kind of turnover that you're seeing compared to 5 years ago or 10 years ago, to give us a better feel for what should we look at for our enrollment numbers would be really helpful, I think.
Sure. I'd be curious as to where we could get that kind of data. I can tell you about projects that are coming, and what you just experienced was a 2-year brain dump that I just put on you. So if we did, more frequent, less
Well, I'm
urgent
assuming
updates
that
about projects that are coming through.
The tax office has got to have information, because once that home sells,
Right.
the SEV, it goes, the taxable value goes up to the SEV.
Right, that's
So
right.
there's got to be some data somewhere in the
Right.
township about
Between the
housing
assessor
stock,
and the
what's
treasurer's
happening with
office,
the housing
right.
stock and the changeover. Like I say, you can't tell us it's a family of 5 or it's a family of 7 or it's a family of 2.
Right.
But to give us a better feel for the neighborhoods and where the changeover is happening, might
Sure.
be
I'll keep that in mind.
informative to us.
So you mentioned that Shiawassee County was added to our MESA.
Yes.
And Shiawassee County, we have a small part of that is part of our district, but we also have folks who live in Clinton County. So where does Clinton County fit with metropolitan? With
Part of it. I mean, that's,
So they're part of ours too. So
Yeah.
I know that area.
Yeah.
Okay, I want to make sure I saw that.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
how do you work, or do you work in the township with these other areas that are, it's really hard to know where that county line is sometimes. when
Sure.
you're crossing, and you've got projects that kind of hit multiple jurisdictions all at once.
well, if it's in the township, I'm aware of it. If it's out of the township, I'm usually not. I have on my to-do list to try to engage, but I've been busy enough that I haven't been bored lately. I know the Shiawassee people better than I know the Clinton County and the Bath and the Aladdin people, but I really feel like I need to get to know Bath and Aladdin. You know, East Lansing and Lansing I know well. Justin Horvath, who's the economic developer for Shiawassee County, is omnipresent. He's everywhere. So, and he's great. And I've interviewed him on the podcast and have gotten to know him well. He's at the regional meetings now that he's in our swimming pool. So, but yeah, that's a good question. But Clinton is definitely part of it. So
Well,
it's,
it's
yeah.
just, I live almost on the county line, and it's always interesting to me just because all the construction that was happening at Saginaw Highway and Marsh,
Yep.
and everybody was complaining to Ingham County folks, and they're all like, that's not us. And so I just think even in Hazlet, because we kind of cross those county lines, we kind of forget what those jurisdictions are and really who to talk to or ask the questions.
Right.
So I was just wondering if you guys
Interesting
talk to each other.
statistic on traffic flow is Costco's where Costco is instead of the drive-in movie theater because they wanted to catch the commuters on their way home.
Oh, yeah.
You're not going to shop at Costco on your way to work, and they wanted to be on the south side of the street, even though the drive-in movie theater would have been a better pad for them to work on, but it's interesting.
So the old L&L property, you talked about a portion of that now being developed for this new senior living piece. Did they sell a portion of that? Of the
They have
existing-
an option to buy about 10 acres from Van Martin's team. So I think the whole Hazlet Village Square, including the kind of the triangle of unbuilt space that goes all the way down to the interurban trail, that whole area is, I think, 28 acres. And so this development company, Cypress Senior Partners, is looking to buy 10 acres. And that's if you're coming from Park Lake towards the Village Square. So now the Village Square is on the right on Hazlet Road. That first turn in, basically from that line, if you drove that all the way back to where Mr. Artist does their tests in the back where their little course is laid out, and then into the woods, and then it kind of triangles back to the corner there is the 10-acre parcel that they've already kind of legally defined, and then they've got this project that's going to be kind of a longer rectangle going from Marsh or Hazlet all the way back into the woods.
So as we met in those development meetings, we talked about the challenge of getting that property to be sold because
Yep.
to getting the current owners to redevelop that land is probably a bigger challenge than selling it. So it seems like if they're buying a piece of that they're open to that buying. So it's getting the right developer to be able to purchase that land in the long run to do something.
That's correct. I'm hoping this is phase one. And if that ownership group, and we use Van Martin's name, but he's herding the cats of owners, I think, is the way that tends to go. But I think that now that there's an income to that ownership group that's kind of found money, then maybe some of that money, they might decide to do a project of their own now that they've got income, or they might parcel off another section and sell another chunk of it and develop a part of it on their own, or sell the whole thing. I think sooner than later, once this other deal is consummated, I bet you'll see more action on that land. And yeah, I'm on it. Then that's what the study is for. So I told them, we've got a lot of available space out here, so if you're interested in this study, Hazlet is where you want to be. Give me a call, I'll give you a guided tour. And I'm doing that Wednesday for an out-of-region developer who wants to tour Hazlet.
So even though there will be less acreage available, the fact that there's movement on portion is actually optimistic and
I think
giving
so.
fuel for more.
Exactly, especially since it's arguably like the least compelling part of it. You know, I think if you can keep the Marsh Hazlet intersection where the bank is and that whole area, there's an opportunity. That's kind of where that's the meat and potatoes, right? That's the corner of First and Main right there. So to have that other energy on this other side of the lot is going to be compelling, because now you'll have almost captive audiences. You know, you have 130 units, single or double occupancy probably, so maybe 250 people that would love to walk across the parking lot to your restaurant or diner or, you know, whatever, any of the commercial services that could be put there.
Is that plan problematic at all, where now we have 10 acres of a larger plot taken out, then maybe another little piece is sold off to a developer, then maybe they decide, instead of a strategic plan, to develop the entire thing at once?
I think it's a little bit of both. I think this is a nice little cash grab that kind of just takes this whole space and you take a little part of it off and you still have a pretty contiguous large piece, palette to paint on, as I like to say. You'll still have another 18 acres to do something big. The Okemos Village that I just gave you a tour of is 4.4 acres. Right? And so what's left after this 10 acres is gone 10 acres, then this is going to still be 18, so.
So in terms of the downtown Okemos project, the whole traffic thing, you talked about that. But as you look at that, a 2-year project, you talked about the bridge too, because they're talking about redoing the bridge. I mean, that whole Okemos road is just going to be a nightmare for a couple of years, correct?
Correct.
In reality.
Yep. Yeah,
And
there's no other way to paint it.
And that's
Yeah.
a major thoroughfare going north and south, because there's really,
of
unless
the
you
river.
go east or
Hagedorn.
west, there's really,
And Van Atta. Hagedorn and Van Atta are your only other northwest corridors, yeah. Yep, so, and they're trying to do all three of them. So you've got the flooding issue over by Leo's,
Yep.
right, that's underwater a couple times a year. So they're.
A couple?
We're working to try to repair that intersection, replace the bridge over the river down by Mount Hope, and do the development project, and have it all, the sum of those three parts.
You've wanted to sequester Okemos School District.
well, I
think the
can't,
idea is you'd rather do it once,
I mean,
right?
people are going to lose their minds for
And-
a couple of years. I mean,
Yeah.
it's just the reality of it.
But if you do it once and you get that whole Mount Hope to Grand River Ave stretch done in one fell swoop, even though it's going to be a painful fell swoop most likely, the sum of the parts from an expense standpoint does flip into some federal funding that might be able to come in and help instead of doing each one and trying to fund it, put them all together, it trips some sort of threshold. So there might be the ability to knock that price down a little bit. Going from the roundabout towards the village on Hamilton to turn left to go south on Okemos Road, you're going to have 2 lanes of traffic there as well. Yeah, and you will be able, going northbound on Okemos Road, you'll be able to turn left onto Clinton, left onto Hamilton,
Thank you.
and left.
Thank you. Somebody who drives
So
that.
real lefts with lanes and stuff, so you don't have the slam on the brakes because someone's turning left in the middle of rush hour waiting for a while, like I do every day.
Can I briefly drag you back into the cannabis industry real quick?
Absolutely.
You touched briefly on the provisioning centers, but
Yes.
how many other businesses have you opted into license for the other segments?
We allowed there to be a presence for all 5 of the licenses, and we had an open enrollment, as it were. We had a lottery period or an application period that is closed, and every application we got was for provisioning. We have no grow operation, secure transport, the testing, I forget what they call that, and then the,
Safety compliance and
yeah, safety compliance, yep. So,
processors.
yep. So we had all 5, and there were different numbers and different places where they could go for each of the licenses, but when we opened it up, they were all provisioning centers. So the one over by Pizza House to Kelly's Consignments to the old Panera, that is the biggest districts. We had 10 applicants in there and had a lottery, and there will only be one winner. The other one's across by a Hobby Lobby area. They had 5, and they had a lottery, and one
And
person
you touched
won.
on the retail sales here the past several days of those that have been open for recreational. Do you guys have any projections on the 6 provisioning centers for the revenues that might come in on those?
No idea. I don't. They pay $5,000 application fee.
Yes, they do.
That's already been cashed, and that's an annual fee. Yeah. I don't know what the
Township's not gonna
revenues.
put any excise tax on top of the excise tax?
Right, I think there is, we are legally allowed to do that. I don't think it's an automatic thing, but I think it's written into our ordinance. It's the road to hoe down the road, and I don't know what the answer to that's gonna be, but, yep.
So I know you're not a planner, but you brought up the developing areas for multiple modes of transportation. So, we have a lot of parts of Hazlet that are not, we don't have really good bike lanes or really good sidewalks. I'm just wondering if if the road millage or if there are any plans in just development in general to build more sidewalks or things to make it a little bit more walkable, a little bit more bikeable as you're doing those repairs?
I don't know the answer to that. The road millage is really for we call it the local streets.
Yeah.
Because there's this whole, if you haven't seen the presentation, but you've got MDOT has just 2 jurisdictions. Then the road department handles
Yeah.
the main streets basically, and then you've got all the basically subdivision streets and secondary roadways. So that's what we're trying to tackle. there is a whole pathway master plan that has a funding mechanism, and things are being done, and there's a big map in my office that has orange dotted lines and blue dotted lines, and those are going to be built, and there's a time frame for all of that. But those are more pathways as opposed to bike lanes in the roadway. I can't answer your question to that.
I just didn't know if there was anything as part of some of the plans. And you talked about people want to be able to get places in 15,
Right.
20 minutes, and
Yep.
so we need to make sure they're safe doing that. And it's a big challenge. I work on campus, and it's a huge challenge. It's not always the most pedestrian or bike-friendly area either, so.
Right. No, I understand.
But I think even expanding the pathways, because we just
Yeah.
have that elevated bridge construction on
Yes.
Okemos Road.
Yeah.
I mean, that makes Okemos Road bikeable and walkable. I mean, it has to be.
Yep.
North of Grand River, you can't.
That's right.
Do anything, but now you can. You know, so I'm assuming, because that's there's plans in a few other places as well to do
Yep.
something similar that will help with that. Well, you know, also not necessarily speaking as a board member, but just as a resident of Meridian Township, if we can also pay attention to the local businesses who are already here and keep them safe and whole. I know that there has been a lot of angst about some of the development in East Lansing. That is, we're losing some of our unique local businesses.
Yep.
Because development did not really consider them, and it really hurt them. So if we can just continue to keep our eye on those folks who've made their stake here and started here and are having a success, and making sure that they still have a place.
Right on. I get it.
I guess circling back to Copper Creek, there was so much, like, I guess, energy and movement, and then, but you sound, the delay, can you revisit why did it stall? Is it a township licensing entirely, or it's the...
Not the township.
Okay.
Did I mention I come from the private sector? I'm used to moving and moving and moving and moving and don't stop. I'm still trying to figure all of that out. What I've learned, I've been probably the closest to the Okemos Village project, and what I've learned is that, you know, you submit plans to satisfy the approval process. And then once it's approved, then you unleash your funding to go back to the architects to have them build building designs. You know, it's like, okay, well, we know the shape, and it's kind of measured, and everything's kind of finalized for the approval process, but where exactly are the meters for the utilities going to go, and where is the storage closet, and where's the electrical for the elevator shaft, and like some of those details need to be drawn, and that isn't fast. And then once that's done, then they take it and shop it out for construction pricing, right? So they have gauges and some ideas, but they now shop it, and okay, instead of $87 million, Okemos Village is 105. So now it's 105 million, and then they go back, and now they have to figure out their lending, right? And so, and honestly, the thing with the Okemos Village right now is the utilities, because it's the oldest infrastructure in the township, right? It's a very, very first inhabitants we've had, or whatever you want to know the word is. I'm in an educational place too. Whatever the word is for that, first area inhabited in the township. So the roads and the sidewalks and the storm drains and the sewer and water and electric and plumbing, blah, 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 all these different utilities are woefully outdated. And so there are three scenarios. One is, well, what do we have, and can it handle the new village? And the answer is, in most cases, is no. It's like, okay, well, what does the village need? And this includes the roads, you know. So what needs to be done to house the village? And then there's the whole, well, while we're here, right, hopefully this is going to spark coattail development, you know, right? The Taekwondo place, and, you know, and up, Bill Kaywood's got some spot, you got Russell Builders across the street, so you've already got people activated in the building, you know, and development community and neighboring properties. And so there's a scenario where this goes from Mount Hope to Grand River on both Marsh and Okemos, and that becomes this huge walkable node of redevelopment for the next 20 years. So why not make sure our storm drain and our plumbing and our burying the power lines versus raising them up and all that kind of stuff. So the difference between what they need to do and what they should do is about $10 million. And so we're trying to figure out what types of switches we can flip to try to help them get some of that money back, because it's not just for their own good, it's for everybody's good. Phase one always bears most of the cost of the project, and this is a staggering project, so it's fascinating to learn. So those are some of the things. And then if you look at the Red Cedar project across from Frandor, I mean, that's that's a double of the Okemos Village, right? That's a $200 million project. We have a $100 million project, and that took 7 years to go from virtual approval to shovels in the ground, and I think we're going to do it in less than a year, so maybe we're ahead of that curve, but I was hoping it would move faster too.
Very informative, very helpful.
Thank you so much.
It's nice to see some, I know your focus is the commercial, but some of those residential are of particular interest to us as well, so.
But I've learned that residential is a huge part of this. You know, again, I said I've never done this before. I rented cars for a living, okay, for 25 years, okay? Didn't exactly set me up with a skill set for this, except to be able to take meetings and be a humble servant, a vendor, and, you know, and trying to help, you know, make things happen in this kind of a setting. But housing is what it's really all about. You know, you can build commercial, but if you don't have people that want what's being built. So it's really about the future of Meridian and preserving schools, subdivisions, and parks, but adding like the icing on the cake. And that's those 7 nodes, as if we can create really cool Rio Town, Old Town, kind of a, with our own, you know, suburban flair to it. But that kind of feeling and named, I want them all named. So stay tuned. So anyway, thank you very much for your time.
Thank you so much.
I'm available anytime too, so if you ever have any questions off the record or on the record, take a business card and I'll leave it to you. Thank you for all your
Thank
time.
you.
Thank you so much.
All right. Well, we'll move right to our board reports, although I don't think we've met. Is that true, policy personnel?
We did not
and
meet
report?
since our last meeting.
We did not meet.
All right, so we'll go to items from board members. Slow week, I guess.
Holiday.
That's true, there was a holiday. All right. And hearing, seeing no board reports or item from board members, we will go to the consent agenda. We have 3 items this evening for consideration. Number 1, approval of minutes from the November 25th regular board meeting. Item number 2, which was attachment B, the 2020 summer tax certification notice. I'm sure that the township likes to see that on our on our agenda. And number 3, the out-of-country field trip request we heard about last time, which were the high school students, the science students going to the Global Leadership Summit in Switzerland. Anything need to be pulled this evening? All right, hearing none. A motion to accept the consent agenda items.
I move approval of the consent agenda.
Motion by East, seconded by?
I second.
Second by Maury, thank you. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Next, we have announcements, which includes the Policy Personnel Committee meeting is scheduled for December 17th at 7:30 a.m. here in the admin building. Finance and Facilities meeting has been scheduled for December 18th, the next day at 7:30 a.m. And then our next regularly scheduled Board of Education meeting will be on January 13th at 7 p.m. This is our one and only December meeting. Have no other business before us.
One more thing, President Lemmer, I apologize, I meant to bring this to the attention during the items here, but regarding the national achievement of our teachers, I'm guessing Superintendent Cook and your staff, you provide some sort of congratulatory letter to them. Has the board ever done anything in the past?
We're going to have them come to a future meeting
Okay,
and present,
awesome.
so
Perfect.
so they can come before us. The 2 that got it before came last year.
Yeah,
so
I remember seeing it, and this was spurred me the last time.
Yeah,
Did
we're
we
planning on
ever given some sort of recognition
Yes.
as to that it was a congratulatory letter or something, from the board?
Great question, thank you very much. Okay, now I'll take a, sorry for all the paper rustling in front of the microphone, a motion to adjourn is in order.
I will move we adjourn.
I'll second.
Motion Paul Rento, second by Wheeler. Any comments, questions? All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. We are adjourned. Thank you very much.